Okay, got some progress on one of my main projects, things of importance. This is the solar array that I've been doing for a little while. I've had these 3 panels going for 2 or 3 months at least. They are Sunpower 560 watt bifacials. I don't know that the bifacial part's going to do a whole lot of good for me here, but they were on sale, being able to get 4 of them. They were on a pretty good sale back a while back, and so I got them to give them a try. Now normally I'm not a huge fan of these huge panels because they really take 2 people to be safe. Ground mount, I'm so far been able to manhandle them, but if there's very much wind, I'm not giving it a try. They're a bit of a beast. If I was above ground, and wanted to be on the roof or something, definitely need 2 to 3 people and safety lines and all kinds of stuff. Now, the racking that I had them on is EG4 Brightmount. I got one of their early ones. I got one of their newer model ones, and then they quit making them. I'd love to be able to find who actually made them, because I don't think EG4 actually has a factory for it. But I like them, especially the second one, because you can change the angles. You can set it. But they do match up. The rails are the same between both of them. It's just one piece basically is different and allows you to change the angle. I can show you that in a second. But what I've done is, by putting the 2 of them together, you got a 4th panel. And then when I ordered more, I didn't pay close enough attention. They're still Sunpower 560s, but they look different, slightly different model, and the voltage is about half a volt different. So I've now got, instead of 3, I've got 7. So 7 560 watt panels. The VOC, I'm going to use the VOC of the newer higher voltage ones. They're about 50 point something. So say 51 volts. So 7 times 51 volts in ideal conditions is the max voltage these are going to give out. And right now it's going into an EG4 3000 all-in-one. That thing can handle up to 500. They suggest 450 or lower. So I'm using 450. I'm well within that. At the 500, I could put 10 of these on there. So I should safely be able to do 9 or even 8 would be good. I've only got room for 7. If you see there's just a little bit of the rack left, then not quite enough room for an 8th panel, which would be awesome. Although with the shading that I've got, the longer it is, the more often one of them at one end or the other is going to get shaded. So a lot more potential output, but until some more trees are trimmed or taken down, possibly still shorter in the day. I'm going to see how this goes, and the bad thing about where they are is in the winter they do get shaded quite a bit by the shed and some trees. So the output is going to be dramatically less in the winter. I learned that with the first 3. So eventually you see the racks or the bows for a shed. That's not, I was just kind of putting that there to see how it fit. I think I'm going to move that, use it somewhere else. I'm building another structure behind that, some kind of a shed or something that'll be useful, but with a regular roof, a roof that's at 30 degrees. And on that one, I'll put some of the used 250 watt panels that I've got, because they're easier to move around. So I'll put some 250s, however many I can get up there whenever I get a building built and designed. And those will help during the winter, because they'll be high enough they won't get shaded near as much. A couple of other things that were different in putting this together. Originally I had quite a few of these midline clamps. I ran out of those. I thought I bought more, ordered more, but I actually ended up ordering the end caps. That's okay, they work just fine. In fact, that might be a little preferable, because I can actually take one panel out without disturbing the ones on the other side. One measurement was slightly off when I ordered these. I tried to be very careful in the little piece right there that goes in the middle down here. The measurement I got was from the outside edge to the outside edge of that, and I needed the next size up because there's a little notch right there on both sides that catch a lip, and it's only catching on one side. It seems to be holding very fine, you know, just fine. But ideally, if I was doing this as a professional and, you know, somebody was paying me to do it, that would not be acceptable. It needs to catch on both sides. So that's something to think about and keep in mind if you're doing this. As for the piers are the same as I did before. I put down a mobile home, like a, I guess a 16 by 16 square, 4-inch thick, heavy mobile home block. Put 2 regular cinder blocks on top of that. Filled all that with concrete, just ready mix, and put another 4-inch paver on top of that, and used either the concrete, or in the last couple I did mortar, so it looks a whole lot better. Mortared those in, let it sit and cure several days, then drilled 3/8 holes about 3.5 inches deep, and put in tap cons, 3/8 by 3s, and it seems pretty darn solid. Now I've got some of the mortar left, so I will probably mix that up at some point just to clean up. You can kind of see how smooth that is. Well, it's not real smooth, but I'm not a mason, but that definitely looks better than that. And I do have some mortar mixed up, so I will do that at some point to clean it up. Another difference between the 2 panels I got, the first ones I got had a pretty long little positive and negative cable with a coil, and the newer ones are very short, just long enough to go from panel to panel if they're side by side. I need to, I may get some wire loom for the positive just to protect that, and then get me some UV stabilized shrink wrap, not shrink wrap, but wire ties or something to pretty up the cables, make sure that they are very secure, they're not going to rub through or anything. I need to get my multimeter out here and check and see if I've got continuity from each panel to the rail or not. A lot of times these apparently will have a coating on them, and there will be no electrical connection here for grounding. And even if I do show continuity and grounding, I still need to come through them, and you can kind of see they've even got a little mark here and a little hole. There are numerous ways, whether you put a screw through there and do your wire, whether you use there's some clips that you can put on that kind of go through the coating and make a good ground. But I need to ground my panels. I've seen 2 different options about grounding these to their own ground rod. However, somebody made a note the other day, and it made sense, especially as close as I am. When I trench to do all of the finalize the wiring here, I may just go ahead and run the ground over, because my grounding rods for the whole system in the cabin is over there, grounded all to one point. Make that better. I've got an excess wire here. This is going to get trenched and conduit put up. I'm going to put a cutoff up here, and probably I may go ahead and put a combiner box. Not that I'm going to combine multiple strings into one, but essentially a oscillator or combiner box here, weatherproof, so that I can already cut the string off indoors, but I need to be able to cut them off outdoors as well. And if I do the second string up above on the roof of a shed here, that'll be a second string. So my conduit needs to be thick enough or big enough to run at least 2 different strings of 10 gauge through there, plus the earth grounds, be able to go through there and then come up to one spot. But I am curious to see. I think we got rain tomorrow, so we're not going to have a real full Sunday. But you can kind of see, if you look over the cabin and then you see the trees. So the sun doesn't have to be very low at all, and it starts getting shaded by the trees and by the shed. I talked to my neighbor at one point a couple of years ago, didn't know what was going to happen. I haven't been able to get back with him, but I may ask him if it's okay, or the family, if I go ahead, because those trees are on his property, if I can trim those down low enough that I'll get another month or two on either end of the season without not shading these panels. I am trying very hard not to put panels on top of that shed itself and put holes in the roof. I'm trying to keep the integrity of the roof as good as possible. The little antenna to the right there, that's just a temporary disc cone that I can use for listening, or 2 meters or 440. The tower on the left hand side at the end of it is actually more permanent. There's a solar powered Meshtastic node up there, and eventually that will be my ham radio antenna and other things like that. I'll probably run a wire off of that. But my best solar production so far with 3 panels has been about 8.4 kilowatt hours in a day, and I'm going from 3 to 7, so I would like to definitely double that, and possibly even more. So if you do now in the middle of the summer, they're not going to be optimally angled. The sun's not going to be directly at the panels. They're going to be a lot higher. These are at about 30 degrees or so, which is kind of the average between the middle of the summer and middle of the winter, highest and lowest sun angles. But now, as far as how much solar production do you need, how many batteries do you need, it's going to depend. And my feelings have been changing a little bit as I gain experience. One thing that I figured out, at one point I was like, okay, maybe I just need as many batteries as I possibly can, because I want to be able to go as long as possible without sun and without having to crank up a generator. And that makes a lot of sense, except for one thing. If you really want to be going mainly off of the sun and not so much using a generator, one of the things you run into is if you can't completely recharge, get your batteries to 100%, at least, I don't know, maybe once a week, the state of charge indicated is going to start drifting and not be accurate. Whether that is the state of charge on the batteries, on the BMS itself, which seem to be notoriously inaccurate over time, regardless of the brand. Whether it's JK, whether it's Seplos, whether it's, whoever it is. They seem to be the least accurate, and some of them are better than others. A good external shunt measuring all energy in and out. I'm a Victron fan, so whether it's a Victron Smart Shunt or another brand that's good, they seem to be a little more accurate because they're accounting for every electron in and out of the battery if you have it wired correctly. Sometimes the batteries themselves, I don't know if they don't account for the power that it takes to run the BMS and some other things, but they just seem to lose accuracy quicker. So if you're going a month or more without getting to 100% state of charge, where whatever's monitoring state of charge can reset to 100, they start drifting. And I've already had a couple of cases where both state of charge, either on the battery bank or on the smart shunt, because it had been a month and a half since I'd been up to 100%, they might have been showing 40%. And the battery shut off because of low voltage. So I think that whereas I was originally kind of thinking battery heavy, especially since that's the most expensive part, and you can always add panels later as you get room and stuff, I'm thinking you need to make sure that you've got enough panels. I would say ideally, wherever you live, if your batteries are down about 20%, 25% on an average sun day, and make that an average over the course of the year, not just over the course of a week or a season or something. But whatever your sun hours are, the average, at least, you should be able to go from 20 or 25%, if not lower, to 100% in a day. Because, again, if it's average, 50% of the days you're not going to get that much sun, and sometimes, depending on where you are, you can go days or weeks with very, very little sun. So if you were to get a good full sun day at a good sun angle, you really would need to be able to charge your batteries from 25, 20 or lower to 100%, if for no other reason than to keep the state of charge accuracy in your BMS and or batteries on, correct and accurate. And also, I mean, if you're doing that, then half of the year, your average day, half of the year is going to be better than that. Half of the year, you should be able to charge the batteries, and then any excess power is what you're running off of through the day. So it's going to be, up to each person, each situation, to determine exactly how much battery you need, how much solar you need, and stuff like that. You've also got to have enough room. There's more to the room for the panels than just the footprint of the panels. You see the angle? I kind of showed you how, as the sun drops, there are trees and then the shed in the way. So the farther away you are from the equator, the lower the sun angle is all year long. It's not directly overhead if you're in the middle of Canada. It's already a few degrees down from overhead. And depending where you are, you can go months with no sun. So the amount of cleared space needed for an array grows as you go north of or south, as you go farther away from the equator, because your panels have to be able to be angled towards the horizon more. Some people may have the adjustable racks, and 2 or 3 times a year they may change them. That doesn't, it just proves it even more. The more the angles are not 90 degrees up, but angle this way, the more space, cleared space you need, without trees, without buildings, without obstruction, so that there is no shading. If you're in the woods, like I am, then you've got to clear more open space. If you're close to the equator, you can point them directly almost 90 degrees up, and you should be good to go. Shouldn't need that big of a clearing. So those are just some things to think about. Racking, voltage, the clear space to the sky, grounding, the size of the panels for manhandling them and being safe. But I have more than doubled the generation. So 7 panels, 560, multiply that out, somewhere around 4,000-ish watts under ideal conditions. We shall see how it goes.